Perfect.
So can you guys see my screen?
Mhm.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is it full screen now?
Yes, it is.
Oh,
Yes.
great. So thanks very much for giving me the time. I recently had, I've been working with Terry and Allison and the town of Smithtown on some issues in hot pod related to sewers. It's been productive. We have so many different things going on that making sure we schedule periodic meetings to keep momentum going has been important. And the HIA is respected, and Terry's just no BS and likes to see things get done. So we appreciate the support. So we have been working for the past 10 years with a diverse group of stakeholders to address a longstanding issue that's vexed economic development and environmental policy in Suffolk County for decades. Unlike Nassau County to our west, which is largely sewered, Suffolk County is largely unsewered for a number of different reasons, mostly because sewering is hard. But these articles I showed to all community groups just to explain to them for purposes of context that this is not a new issue. These articles date back to the 1960s in Newsday, showing that there's a lot of pressure on the county to create a long-term plan to sewer the entire county. At one point, they had something that didn't move forward. The article up top is a little bit funny. The first paragraph says, mention Long Island to some people in India or the USSR, and they might wrinkle their noses and ask, quote unquote, isn't that where they have cesspools? And the answer is, unfortunately, that we do. We still have about 380,000 cesspools and septic systems in the county. They are, primitive environmentally. They constrain economic growth in many of our downtowns and business corridors. And we right now have more sewer construction underway in Suffolk County than has been underway in generation, and we have a lot of other projects in the pipeline, but they really can't move forward without a source of funding. We have $400 million worth of projects under construction on the South Shore using post-standard resiliency funding in the Falls River watershed in Babylon, and the new Forge River watershed sewer district in Brookhaven, and the new sewage treatment plant there. We're working with Patchogue to connect about 400 parcels there. We're about to break ground on sewer projects in Kings Park and in Central Islip, but there's still a lot more work to do. And we do know that the business districts that have sewers like Babylon and Patchogue and Huntington Village and Port Jefferson are kind of flourishing, while other communities like Kings Park and Smithtown have a lot of boarded up stores. And so we've been working closely with local governments trying to advance sewer projects there. This is a slide we use, which is usually animated, that shows folks the connection between cesspools and septic systems and bays and harbors. We concede in this slide, this is the Nature Conservancy slide, that cesspools and septic systems are not the only source of excess nutrients to surface waters. Fertilizer is one, but fertilizer impacts are dwarfed by what's coming out of cesspools and septic systems, which multiple scientific studies show is around 70% of the excess nutrients. Visible signs of excess nutrients in our surface waters. The picture in the center shows something that's becoming more and more common on Long Island. The map was created by the Nature Conservancy and Dr. Gobler's lab in Stony Brook, showing in 2022 alone the number of harmful algal blooms and bacterial blooms around Long Island. We have more of those now than any other place in the United States. Ironically, I have a study in my office here that was issued in 1962 by the first Suffolk County executive, H.L. Dennison, who was both a Democrat and engineer, urging the Board of Supervisors, which was predecessor to the Suffolk County Legislature, to work with him to create a plan to sewer all of Western Suffolk County, and predicting that if they did not do that, they would see water quality deteriorate in the bays over time. And he's absolutely right, unfortunately. He also said pointedly in the cover letter that if they failed to do that, they would be deemed by future generations to have been negligent. And I continue to hammer that message home with current elected officials. For generations, elected officials have kind of kicked the can down the road on this issue because it's a difficult issue. But right now, we have a plan, finally a science-based plan. The Suffolk County Legislature unanimously approved the findings resolution for it in 2020, and we're trying to get it moved forward. This slide just goes to the issue of, are we alone in trying to deal with this issue? The answer is absolutely not. Nitrogen pollution is recognized as a problem globally. The United Nations declared it a global concern in 2019, and throughout the United States, people are dealing with it. We're kind of proud of the article on the right because it's from Hawaii, and one of the things that our friends at Stony Brook University have been telling folks, and we appreciate it, is that 10 years ago, Suffolk County was running around trying to figure out what other municipalities were doing to deal with nitrogen pollution. And at this point, people from other states were calling us and asking how we got our program stood up so quickly. This quote from Hawaii is an indication of that. We now have a national reputation as being a leader. What Dr. Gobler says is that we went from worst to first in the nation. So trying to make sure people understand that in a community that's surrounded by water, and relies on surface waters to support its economy, there's a lot at stake here. One of the reasons that IBM Corporation, when it sent a team of experts here in 2014 to evaluate the wastewater problem, pretty much concluded that the status quo is not sustainable, and it's not a question of whether or not the county and state develop a plan or not. We really have no choice but to develop a plan to deal with the lack of wastewater infrastructure, given all the economic implications. What's not listed here are the long-term implications for drinking water, which is always a concern. So, we now have this clean water plan. Goals are pretty simple: restore and protect water quality and promote new economic investment in downtown business districts. Critically important, creating a dedicated source of funding to make connecting the sewers or upgrading systems affordable. Businesses and homeowners, county executive has always said, if it's not affordable, homeowners forget it, will never work. The plan, the Sub-Watersheds Wastewater Plan, calls for the elimination of 177,000 cesspools over 30 years between 2024 and 2054 by connecting parcels to sewers or installing new clean water septics. And importantly, right now, we know that there are significant sources of state and federal funding. There's bipartisan infrastructure law funding on the federal level and the New State Bond Act. Typically, in order to secure those funds, you need a local share to match the state and local funding that's available. And the timing for our new plan cannot be better because those funding sources are out there. There are a lot of expressions of support for our clean water plan, or Suffolk County Sub-Watershed Wastewater Plan when it was issued. But we're particularly proud of this one from Dr. Gobler, who's kind of a respected academic and scientist who talks about strong science that underscores the plan. It delineated 190 individual watershed areas in the county, parcel by parcel, assessed nitrogen loading in each watershed, and then made nitrogen load reduction goals for each one, and then established priority areas around the county for connections to sewer or for installation of clean water septics in situations or communities where sewers are not a cost-effective solution. Under the recommendations of the plan, about as many as 39,000 parcels would be connected to sewer. And that's indicated down below. The Suffolk County Legislature on St. Patrick's Day in 2020, during the pandemic, finally, after a 3-year period of work and review, unanimously approved the findings for the Sub-Watersheds Wastewater Plan, and now we're into the implementation phase. This is a map that shows a couple of things. Number one, the priority areas are delineated by color. Critical priority areas are the ones in pink. They're usually either in close proximity to surface waters or have reduced travel time to groundwater. And those are priority areas delineated in the Sub-Watershed Wastewater Plan for replacement of cesspools and septic systems in phase 2 between 2024 and 2054. And then the darker colors are areas where our plan calls for additional sewering. It's not etched in stone. We have some renewed interest on the part of elected officials in Central Brookhaven, for example, for sewers in Center East Selden, Farmingville, in Forum, and we're looking at that now. But this is the map that was included in the plan. You can see it calls for significant expansions of the Southwest Sewer District into communities that have been waiting decades for sewers, Deer Park, Wyandanch, Wheatley Heights, and then also in Islip, in the Oakdale Sayville area, where they've been waiting a long time for sewers as well. And then, the addition of the southern portion of the Massachusetts Shirley Peninsula, where we have construction underway right now on the Forge River Watershed Sewer District. So in order for us to move forward with implementation, we need two things. We need an organizational structure that's required to administer the plan and manage wastewater projects. That's a proposed county-wide wastewater district. And as mentioned earlier, we need a recurring source of funding to service the local match needed to secure federal and state funding. And again, repeating that the key to advancing the clean water plan is to make it easy and affordable for property owners. Otherwise, it will not work. So as I indicated earlier, we do have significant sewer infrastructure projects moving forward this year. Construction is underway in Forge River and Falls River, going very well. We're about to break ground in Kings Park. They've been waiting for a long time for that project. Central Islip, we're about to break ground, and Huntington Station Hub. All of these projects are only possible because of grant funding. The only reason that they're moving forward. If you didn't have a source of funding to make the projects affordable for homeowners, it's a very simple recipe. You draw a map around a series of parcels, you design a project. If you bond the entire project, that becomes like a mortgage payment. Everybody pays their share of the mortgage payment. In most cases, the amount that each property owner would be billed is so great that the project can't move forward. The county has numerous sewer feasibility studies that were completed that are sitting on a shelf just for lack of funding. So these are some of the projects that are in our pipeline that people would really like to see move forward. The top of the list are these extensions of sewer district number 3 Southwest. The community's been waiting for a long time. North Belport is a project we've been working with the town of Brookhaven on. There's a transit-oriented development that they've been pushing in the vicinity of the Belport train station. Working with the Holbrook Chamber on a project there. The Smithtown Business District is a very important project to us. We have Kings Park moving forward to construction, and we're working closely with Supervisor Wareheim, trying to assemble the funding necessary for the Smithtown Business District. The county executive just announced a grant of $10 million in ARPA funding to contribute towards that. And then the new legislator in Legislative District number 4, Nick Karakapis, the chair of the Public Works Committee, and is very interested in moving forward with sewering in central Brookhaven, including Century, Selden, Farmingville, and Forum. And so we have feasibility study work and planning work underway there. So there's a lot of interest in doing long-term sewering. So the Sub-Watersheds Wastewater Plan doesn't roll off the tongue. So we've been using the term Clean Water Plan to describe it to the community. It calls for the investment of $4 billion over 50 years for sewer connections and system upgrades. Again, counting it again, key to success, making it affordable for property owners. Right now, we see a significant potential for federal and state funding that requires a local match for us to maximize it. And local match has to be a recurring and secure funding source. One of the things that we have learned in our discussions with colleagues in other states is that they really could not get a program going until they had 5-year or 10-year predictability. You can't fund an ongoing program with Bond Act grants. You need to know each year what to expect. That's the importance of having a recurring source of funding. So you may have seen this news they cover in March. We had hoped to have a ballot measure in 2022. We were unsuccessful. In the fall of 2022, we regrouped with organized labor, the building trades, and environmental community, and said, let's get ready for the legislative session in 2023. We succeeded in having the governor include language in her proposed budget called the Suffolk County Water Quality Restoration Act, and we got strong support to include that language in the state budget so that we could have a legislative process underway in Suffolk County in time to get a ballot measure up in 2023 on our proposed funding source. We really appreciated getting strong support from all of the Republican state senators in Suffolk County, from the supervisors of Smithtown, Islip, and Brookhaven. We had a lot of momentum and were very successful in Albany. So what the Suffolk County Water Quality Restoration Act did was it authorized the county to advance a ballot measure to allow voters to decide whether to establish a dedicated fund for wastewater infrastructure. 1/8 of a penny would generate 3.1 billion through 2060 for use as a local match to maximize the ability to secure federal and state funding. As you'll see, the proposal for a ballot measure is strongly supported by a broad coalition, including organized labor, building trades, and the environmental community. And the Suffolk County Legislature must now approve 2 resolutions to allow the creation of the countywide district, and then also to allow voters to decide on this new fund. So the stakeholders have been looking at, there's no perfect way to raise revenue in government. It's very, very difficult, right? So the stakeholders last year had been talking about a funding model that was based on one that's used in the state of Maryland. It's called the Bay Restoration Fee. They assess a $5 per month or $60 per year charge against every parcel in their jurisdiction. We were talking about that last year, but the more we looked at it, the more we became concerned it was not a good fit for Suffolk County because there's no efficient billing collection mechanism. The billing collection mechanism that we have in place, obviously, is the property tax bill. But we were advised by the Department of Law that even though the Bay Restoration Fee modeled after the state of Maryland would not have been an ad valorem charge, if we included it on the property tax bill, it would have become part of the county property tax cap calculation and really made it difficult for the county to continue to respect limitations in the property tax cap. And I think that, the county government has made a point of complying with the tax cap every year. That did not seem like a good fit for us, and the stakeholders began looking instead at the possibility of using sales tax, which has been supported in the past by the voters, and saw multiple benefits to moving in that direction. No increase in property tax. No increase in property taxes, obviously no new fees. Visitors, not just residents, contribute much of the revenue, and 1/8 of a cent is nearly invisible to consumers. It's about 12 cents on a $100 purchase. If you agree that we need to generate revenue for wastewater infrastructure, this appears to be as palatable a model politically as you can come to. If you don't agree wastewater infrastructure is important, well, it's a different issue, different concern. So we have a great year by year model projection of what the funding would come to, but this one just shows key points. First year being 2024, and then 2030, 40, 50, and 60. You assume 2% growth in sales tax revenues, recognizing that they ebb and flow, but over time they do grow, and 2% a year is a much more conservative estimate than our the county's own economic consultants would suggest. We think it's very safe. Then we have the other issues related to sewers that may be of interest to some. We have 27 sewer districts in the county. They were established over a period of years, and due to changes in regulatory guidance and what the county inherited when they took some of these things over, they're not all billed on the same basis. In some districts, property owners pay based solely on the assessed valuation of a property, which is problematic because it doesn't consider what the use of the property is, how much water it uses, or how much wastewater it generates. Some property owners are billed based on a combination of assessed valuation and an annual user fee. Still, a third category is properties that are billed based solely on a user fee. So there's no uniformity. There are equity issues. I'll just raise a couple for identification. On the residential side, in one sewer district in Huntington, Strathmore A, the average homeowner in 2022 paid $1,339. $1,339. In the neighboring district in Kings Park, the average homeowner didn't pay $1,339. They paid $156 and collected less than half of the district's operating expenses through sewer fees and relied on taxpayers countywide to subsidize the remainder. Not equitable. a commercial example, and a legislator call me and say, look, I have a friend who owns a storage facility in Belport. He says he's paying as much as a condominium complex for sewers. That can't be right, can it? So I checked into that, and it turned out he's right. He owns a storage facility in sewer district number 7, I'm going to say, and billing methodology is based solely on the assessed valuation of his property, not on how much water it uses. He's got a single employee bathroom, right? Not facility's not occupied. He's paying $12,000 a year for sewer service. In a neighboring district to the north, District 11, a restaurant in a strip shopping center, which generates, multiple times as much wastewater, is paying only $2,500. So we have some equity issues that need to be addressed, and streamlining our sewer systems, our sewer districts into a single zone of assessment in the countywide district will enable us to create for the first time a uniform billing methodology where all single-family homes pay the same amount and all businesses pay based on their actual water usage. So for the first time, we would address all of those inequities and create a much more efficient system by eliminating 27 redundant district administration. We're excited about that. So accountability is important. It's an unfortunate reality that in the past, government on all levels, when times are tough, has sometimes used funds that were originally intended for one purpose and redirected them to assist with budgetary issues. We had that issue in Suffolk County in 2011, 12, and 13. In 2014, the county, as part of a settlement, did a voter referendum and added language to the county charter that made clear and explicitly, by amending the county's Environmental Bill of Rights, that only the voters can change the use of funding that's approved by the voters. The state authorizing legislation that was adopted by the state legislature this year, allowing us to move forward, includes that same language, essentially creating a lockbox to make sure these funds can only be used for water infrastructure. And the bill also created board of trustees to oversee the use of this fund and require annual independent audits moving forward. So here are some of the supporters that expressed their views to the governor and the state legislature. We do want to thank the HIA for generating a letter saying, look, we support, we would support advancing this bill to let Suffolk County consider letting the voters decide. This list is a little bit outdated. It doesn't include some of the folks who have expressed support since, but just an indication of the kind of broad support we have finally for this plan. This is an editorial that Newsday published shortly after we issued the Clean Water Plan, and they've been pounding repeatedly. These are not easy issues to advance among elected officials. We've been emphasizing that we're simply asking them to advance the measure to let the voters decide. But when it comes to providing new revenues, politically, that's a tall order for some elected officials. But we like this quote that we pulled out of this editorial, and we continue to push it wherever we can. Let Suffolk residents vote, which is where we are right now. Next steps, legislature is meeting on Wednesday and considering 2 resolutions, one of which would authorize the establishment of a countywide wastewater district, and the second of which would authorize a ballot measure this November on a charter law to extend our existing drinking water protection program and establish a new water quality restoration fund using aid to the penny. So that's kind of where we're at. We have been talking to stakeholders. We know that they're talking to their legislators and expressing support for the 2 bills. We appreciate the working relationship we have with HIA. We're involved right now in some long-term planning about a potential need for improvement to our new facility at Sewer District 18. Some of you have been talking to you about that. You guys should just be aware that the new facility at Sewer District 18 is permitted for 1.6 million gallons per day of capacity. There are less than 400,000 gallons a day going into the facility right now, so there's no issues or concerns at all about capacity at the facility. But the addition of a new overlay district that could provide for some residential use, means we have to take pause and make sure that the expansion of Sewer District 18 that advanced over a period of years, beginning, I believe, in 2007, that all the infrastructure is sized correctly in the event that there's going to be some residential development on any of the parcels in the overlay district, because when district was expanded, it was expanded based on the assumption that the pre-existing industrial zoning would be maintained and that the average flow per acre would be about 1,250 gallons. So we're working closely on that issue. Now we have benefit of having a qualified consulting firm working with us. I saw Rich was with us earlier, H2M, who we have a great relationship with. And we are trying hard to advance the final phase of the expansion of Sewer District 18. We're working now to acquire a site for a pump station. They can get that last piece under construction. And the other issue we're working with Terry on is trying to get people connected to the sewer system. We did this, $80 million expansion of the district. We still have a significant number of parcels that are not connected, and Terry and HIA are working closely with us to support a push where we have the ability to require people to connect if needs be. We're going to move forward with that model. So that's all I wanted to speak to you about today. I'm happy to try and answer any questions that folks have, and we appreciate the support that we've gotten from HIA in the past. Hopefully we'll continue to see that support.
Thank you, Peter. Anybody have any questions? Comments?
Yeah, as an Oakdale resident, Peter, I mean, I can only share the sentiment through the local residents is this is never going to happen. It's not going to happen in our lifetime. There's a really negative piece to, I know there was something happening in Great River and there was an under Connecticut River thing. And this is now 5 years ago that they gained support and nothing has happened. So, at least from my perspective, and I agree that it's a worthwhile topic and that it's necessary as somebody who lives on the river. Okay, and my cesspool is literally 20 feet off my bulkheading. Okay.
Yeah. So I could speak to that, Scott. So first, let me tell you that Oakdale is a place, it's a textbook example of an area that needs to be sewered. We have a nearby sewage treatment plant that's got adequate capacity, and it's just a matter of funding. We have in all the communities that we've been working with, Mastic, Kings Park, where we have sewers under construction, every time we do a public event, elected official gets up and says, we were all told it would never happen. We were all told it would never happen. The answer is, it can happen if you committed to a long-term process and you're supportive. So in Oakdale, we had the unfortunate experience in 2019 where in a couple of weeks prior to a referendum in January 2019, a small group of residents said, look, we don't think this is right for us. And they went around and, kind of motivated people who hadn't been paying attention to come out and vote no. That's fine. We pivoted and said, look, let's sewer Oakdale instead. And so we have a project in Oakdale that is under design. We have an application pending before FEMA for $35 million in hazard mitigation grant program funding, which we're supposed to get a decision on in over the summer. And we're anxious to show the people of Oakdale that sewers can, because I appreciate that cynicism. They've been waiting for decades, just like people in Deer Park have been waiting for decades. And I live on the North Shore where depth to groundwater is a little bit greater, but I have spoken to people in your community who tell me that they have to time when they do laundry. They can't shower and do laundry the same day. This is an area where I guess you can make a strong argument that it shouldn't have been developed without sewers, right? And so I hear you loud and clear. All I can say is that, look, it is possible. We have sewer construction underway right now in communities that thought they'd never see it, right? And so even when I talk to, I don't know if you know Richard Remmer in your community, he's a great guy. When we, last time I talked to him about the longer term initiative, even he was cynical, right? So and I took that back to the county executive. I said, Richard Rimmer is a responsible, credible, articulate person. If he's got deep-seated cynicism about this, that's an issue. So I just want to respond to you by acknowledging that the only way to prove to people that sewers can really happen is to get a project underway. I'm hoping we can do that soon.
Peter, I have a question for you because I'm confused, and I think we're neighbors because I'm over on North Road, and I think you're close, and our block ends on the water. So we have sewers in the street, but I have a cesspool. Like, I don't understand how the whole sewer thing works. Like,
No, you don't have sewers in the street.
there is a drainage sewer right outside my property.
That handles road runoff, right? So but that does not handle wastewater. That accommodates road runoff, stormwater off the street.
And where does that go? So, like, I don't know any of these mechanisms. So what does that do? And then, and where does that water go? And can't we, I don't know, I'm confused by the whole thing.
Okay, so in New York City, they have a system that manages wastewater and stormwater together, which is a problem. The collection system dates back to the mid to late 1800s, and every time there's a storm, the sewer system overflows into the surrounding bays and harbors. It's called a combined sewer overflow. In areas of Suffolk County, the people who are responsible for the roadways and keeping water off the roadways have installed a series of pipes which were designed and intended to get water off the roads as quickly as possible after a storm. There's been increasing knowledge and appreciation over the past several decades that road runoff has potential environmental impacts, and there's been an increased focus on trying to make sure that before it's shunted off or channeled into surface water, that it's subject to some sort of treatment, but it's not managed along with wastewater. Your wastewater instead is the waste that comes out of your home, your toilets, your sinks, your showers, your washing machine. That does not enter into the drainage system that we're talking about now. That instead, in our community, is pumped directly into the ground, into if your system was built prior to 1973, into a series of concrete rings that just allowed the material to percolate into the ground. Ultimately, it gets into the environment, into groundwater, to surface water. In communities where there are sewers, the wastewater from the home is instead collected as part of a centralized collection system and conveyed to a treatment facility where it's treated to remove contaminants and then returned to the environment, either through groundwater recharge in areas where there's groundwater recharge, or there are sewer systems in Suffolk County which discharge the treated water into surface waters, whether it be Long Island Sound or its tributaries, or on the South Shore into the Atlantic Ocean. There's a 3-mile outfall from Bergen Point into the ocean. But for much of Suffolk County, there is no active treatment. The 1962 study that I referenced earlier says that cesspools and septic systems were supposed to be temporary pending completion of the sewer system. They have not been temporary. And there's an increased awareness that the lack of active treatment is causing all sorts of water quality problems. Same time, we recognize that for property owners in business communities, business districts, lack of sewer infrastructure constrains what they can do with their properties, and requires them to I understand that there are some restaurants, for example, in Fayetteville, that have to use disposable plates and utensils because they can't comply with the public health restrictions for a community that isn't sewers. So that's kind
so
of
that road runoff water, which when I call it a sewer, but I don't know anything better. The one out front of my house, that just goes into the ground the same way home waste goes into a ground through a cesspool, right?
typically it's collected through a series of pipes and discharged into surface waters, right? So they did do with respect to your community, the town of Brookhaven did a West Meadow Creek study, I'm going to say around 2000, that marked and assessed every outfall and identified opportunities to install new infrastructure to interrupt the direct flow of that road runoff into the creek and the surface water to allow for some removal, either settlement of sediments or removal of some of the contaminants. It's also a state requirement, but it's typically in a coastal community like the one you and I live in, it is returned to surface waters, unfortunately. Right down the street from me, and I'm around the corner from you, there is a 30-inch outfall that takes all of the storm water from a watershed that's several miles in area, and creates all sorts of havoc. So it's not in coastal communities that typically goes into surface water.
Yeah, thank you. I really was very confused by the sewer system, so thank you for clarifying that for me.
Harry, maybe an observation for the group. By the way, Peter, thanks for the presentation. I thought it was great. When Steve's administration started, water quality was clearly one of his priorities, and he put Peter in charge of, trying to figure out how to attack this huge issue of sewers. And I know Peter and the county have evaluated many alternatives, and at the end of the day, trying to figure out a way to have recurring funding was the critical piece of it. So I think what the county has finally come up with it's the plan. It really is. It's a great plan. It's a very strongly supported plan. I'm thrilled to see that there's so much advocacy for the plan also. And it's what the county's looking to do, is not uncommon from even what Nassau County has done decades earlier, where they created a consolidated sewer district, and over the years, took elements of what was happening in the county and brought them into the fold of county DPW. And the fact that the vision, you've got a decades long vision that is what it's going to take. So us being able to be persistent and consistent in supporting what the county's doing, I think is vital for all of us. So it's, yes, there's going to be effects. I live in Smithtown, an area that's probably not going to end up being sewered. But, there's no doubt, to Peter's point, what the county is going to do in Smithtown and Kings Park and other communities is really going to allow tremendous revitalization opportunities. So, I feel like, it's kind of like the ultimate parting shot for Steve's administration, because it's something he's been working on so hard for so many years. And between him and Peter, I just want to thank you guys, because based on what you showed us today, I think the plan is a really strong plan.
Yeah, I'll tell you guys a story, because we're kind of friends, right? So Steve recruited me away from DEC. I really liked the job. I was having a great time. While I was there, all this advocacy about needing to deal with nitrogen pollution was happening. And my good friend, Senator Ken LaValle at the time, was having an annual environmental roundtable. And I remember him calling me once and saying, "What are we going to do about nitrogen? What are we going to do about nitrogen? What are we going to do about nitrogen?" And I said, "Look, so Senator, I understand Steve Ballone 2 weeks ago stood up and said it was public enemy #1. So if I'm you, if he's going to take it on, I'd provide him with all the financial support that he needs." And that's kind of exactly what happened. I mean, from DEC's standpoint, coming down into a region and making the individual pieces of it happen would be difficult. So the state found us to be a responsible partner, and hundreds of millions of dollars have come down here. The reason that these projects are all under construction, it's all state and federal funding, right? So we're kind of proud of what we've done. We would like the plan to be implemented and for the momentum to continue, because if it doesn't, everything that we have underway is just going to come to a screaming halt. So hopefully we can get through these next few weeks. The public hearing is on Wednesday. We created a legislative timeline that respects the legislature. And what do I mean by that is that it doesn't rely on any special meetings or any certificates of necessity or emergency resolutions. It gives them 4 weeks after the public hearing to kind of work their way through things, see if they have any issues, and then to vote on July 25th in order to get this thing on the ballot in November. It needs to be approved by them by August 4th. So by giving them all that time on the front end, what we've done really is we've created a circumstance where we don't have a lot of time on the back end, right? So we're hopeful that this this next few weeks are going to be give us the ability to kind of address any concerns that the legislature has. This is a big issue. This is a complicated issue. There's a lot to learn. I mean, we've been briefing people, and it's like, to use the cliche, it's like giving them water with a fire hose. For people who haven't been paying close attention to it, there's a lot to learn. I mean, even a local elected official who knows that the village mayor would like $10 million for a sewer project, he knows that, because the village mayor is calling him. The big picture is something maybe they don't have this big of a grasp.
Yeah.
So, Peter, are you anticipating from the legislative standpoint any opposition?
Yeah, we have had conversations with well, look, there are legislators who are, for lack of a better term, anarchists, right? They're really never in favor of anything, right? But they don't really have any initiatives that they're committed to. But every time somebody rolls out an idea, what they like to do is just blow it up, right? So we have a couple of those, right? I would not have sewers under construction in Kings Park, but for the town of Smithtown, because I have an anarchist legislator over there, right? So you'll hear stuff like, I'm briefing one legislator, and she says, well, how much money did Steve Ballone steal from the sewer fund? I said, well, look, sounds to me like you've been duped by the Rob Trotta School of Disinformation. Just a simple fact is that no county executive, whether it's this one, ones that preceded them, or the ones that'll follow, no county executive has the unilateral ability to make a budget decision. The legislature is the last approves the budgets, So, but that's the kind of stuff that you'll hear. Ridiculous stuff. We call it MSU. Anybody know what MSU means? Making stuff up. We were having. I don't use stuff usually. So we were having an 8:30 call with the stakeholders this morning, and one of them starts talking to me about rates in the Southwest Sewer District, and the people are owed money, and I'm like, Kevin, you're just making it up. I'm not going to get into the weeds about that. I've been studying the problem in the Southwest Sewer District for 8 years. I know exactly what's going on down there. I know why the consolidation of those sewer districts into a single zone of assessment is in their best interest over time. But what will happen is that the tractors will try and get into the weeds and instill doubt, because instilling doubt is the thing that you want to do with elected officials, because in the face of doubt, they're less inclined to vote yes. But there's going to be a tremendous, we've never seen, usually we don't see organized labor, the building trades, and the environmental communities united on something. This is a very unique situation. It's going to be very difficult for them not to move forward.
So, and then what happens after that? It goes on the actual ballot for a vote for the general public, right?
That's correct. So the charter amendment, which would create the fund, would be placed on the ballot in November. The creation of the district, which is a separate action, state law attaches what's called a permissive referendum to that. That means that it doesn't go on the ballot as of right, but if a petition is filed by resident electors or voters, that too could be placed on the ballot. We're hopeful that's not the case.
I'm asking because I know we've had this brief discussion about when it goes to the general public. A lot of times, if people don't know anything about it,
Right.
don't even check a box off, right? Because they're like, I have no clue.
So that's a really good question. So we know, when we in January 2019 we had referenda on the post-Sandy resiliency funding sewer projects in Mastic, in Babylon, and in Great River, and in that instance, the stakeholders in organized labor, building trades, and environmental communities did advocacy. They did mail. They went door to door. The county couldn't really do advocacy. We could just inform. we anticipate the same thing would happen here. There would be tremendous advocacy and organized advocacy campaign to complement whatever educational work that we've done. We've been going out and briefing chambers of commerce and community organizations for the last 6 months, and particularly in communities that have been waiting for sewers for decades, and the reaction and response has been largely positive. So we're encouraged.
So what I'm thinking, Scott, I know you and Michael are working on, what we're gonna do for our energy and environmental conference right now. I'm thinking Peter could probably make some opening remarks.
Yeah, that would be
Audience.
a great idea.
Yeah, as well as maybe at one of your next meetings, to highlight this Suffolk County water plan, clean water plan. I
Yeah.
think we can get it out, and we'll definitely push this out, Peter. Absolutely.
Yeah, and so I have to I don't have to tell you guys something you don't know. It's having external third-party validators like all the groups that are supporting the plan is critically important, right? Because there's an inherent distrust of government and its cynicism, right? Scott talked about it a little bit, and so we continue to use folks like that wherever we can. One our regional planning council, for example, has been pushing for the establishment of the district. And they'll speak on Wednesday. So if and when I come and address you, maybe I may be accompanied by somebody who wants to be a cheerleader. Let me know when the date is, and I'll make it my business to be there.
I think that the uphill battle here, when it gets to the voters, is, can you tell me? So we're at 8.625% right now in Suffolk County, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and I hear a lot of, and I love the idea that it's not just the the residents that are paying for something; it's the visitors and everybody else. But I recently heard that there's an increase in the hotel tax. I know that there was people they kind of get numb to these requests, and all they lump it into is it's another tax, it's another tax, it's another tax, right? And that's why also I know that when I flip the ballots, like I actually look at what it is, but they're written in a way that they're written by lawyers, right? Sorry, Joe, but they're written by lawyers and they're confusing to the people who have had absolutely no exposure to what this money is going to do and how it's protected.
Yeah, so that's a really good point. And the ballot abstract has already been drafted on this one. I think it's pretty easy to understand. If I was smarter, I'd put it up right now, but I'm not smarter, technically.
And where are we at 8.625%? Where are we on sales tax compared to Nassau, compared to other, municipalities and stuff? Do you know that?
So we and Nassau are the same, right? We do, and with this additional eighth, we would be an eighth of a penny higher than Nassau, but still lower than New York City and still lower than Westchester.
Right.
So, and if I was smarter, like I said, I did a memo that kind of laid all of that stuff out in a single place. Happy to provide that to folks if it's of interest.
Maybe Peter, as a follow-up, if you can send it to us, we will distribute. Absolutely. All right, good. Well, thank you again, Peter. Appreciate your partnership and all you're doing for us, not only with the sewers, but seriously keeping our water clean. I mean, how important that is, right? So we'll push this out. We'll get back to you with the dates that we just discussed in terms of the energy conference and I think other ways we can get it out to the general public. If you guys can think of other ways, let us know. Certainly. Yeah.
Yep, and expressing support to legislators, this week would be helpful if there's any way you guys can do that.
Yeah, that gal that you were just speaking of, I'll give her a call today.
Very
Yeah?
good.
Okay,
Thanks,
sounds
folks. Have a
good.
great day.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.